108B. 108B. We literally left off. We left off yesterday at the Mishnah. So the Mishnah says as follows: a posek knows the customer. It's a very interesting case. Someone promises money to his son-in-law. An age-old story. Right? So someone promises money to his son-in-law. Now, I will say, in this particular case, what's unfolding over here is like this. Essentially, we're talking about a dowry. So imagine for a moment that Reuben is marrying Rachel. Rachel's father promises Reuben some amount of money. And what happens? And then the father-in-law extends his foot. So what does it mean extends his foot? So again, extends his foot means the father-in-law doesn't pay. So Rachel's father doesn't pay the dowry. Now look at actually just a moment. Pashat law is halakha. Lashon Zion v'amar no age she'enu chash l'gvarav told tit sha'al Rabbi. What's interesting? This Talmudic expression of extending your foot, essentially, I'm giving you nothing. Take the dirt that's on my shoe. Take dirt. Now, in general, what this sounds like is the father-in-law is intentionally not giving his son-in-law the money. But the truth is, the case doesn't have to be set up that way. That's just the way that's what the Mishnah is saying. So, Ragel, here, take the dirt that's on my foot. I'm not giving you any money. The point here is, father-in-law promised money and now is not delivering. So I'll say, now the problem we're in is what? Kiddushin has already taken place. So Reuben was already Mekadosh Rachel. The Yisuin has not yet been done. Father-in-law indicates that whatever the situation is, he will not pay the money. Once that Rachel happens to get best, Rosha, the Chachamim say, ultimately again, literally she has to sit there until her hair goes gray, which means she's stuck. Rachel's stuck. That, in other words, at this point in time, the control is in Reuben's hands, and either he can make a choice to marry her, right, or ultimately just wait and do nothing until her father pays her. After all, again, there was an agreement. That was made. Rachel's father is not honoring the agreement. So again, moving the law to a holding pattern where his father-in-law pays the agreement. Admon says, the Rachel could say to Reuben, so Admon says like this. Rachel could say to Reuben, listen, I, Rachel, was going to promise you money. If I was going to promise you money, then you can hold it over my head. If you can hold it over my head, then you can essentially, hold me in this marriage until either I pay you or until I pay you. But again, Achshav, Sha'ada Pasak, then for the Lasos, Okinos, Okidon. So she says, what do you want from me? My father promised me this. So you're going to hold me accountable, you're going to punish me for my father's actions. So Reuben, either marry me, rightly soon, or divorce me. So Rabbi says, I'm Rabbi Gamliel, no, I need to that. Rabbi Gamliel says, I think Adon is correct. So therefore, Rabbi says, fundamental machlokes. Once again, just to reframe the case. So Rachel's going to get married to Reuben. Rachel's father promises Reuben $10,000. Right? That's still doing it. That's the dowry. Reuben does kiddush. Now, father-in-law says, I'm not giving you. I can't give you. I won't give you. Whatever it is. The point is, he's not giving. So now, the Chachamim say, Reuben has every right to essentially hold Rachel in this marriage until her father decides to pay. And ultimately, if he doesn't pay, so then Rachel's going to grow old in his sleep. But Kiddushim, Admon says that's not right. It's not right. Right? Ultimately, again, I say about it, even the Chachamim are not necessarily saying it's right. The Chachamim is saying it's legal. This is technically a legal recourse that he has. The course, his father-in-law's hand. So Rachel says that. So Adon says that Rachel can say to her husband, "That's not right. I didn't enter into this agreement with you. My father did. Why are you punishing me for the fault of my father? Listen, don't keep me in limbo. Either marry me or divorce me." Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, I think that follows Adon. Beautiful. Let's go. So Maslisit Yaikana. Our Mishnah does not reflect the views of following Kala. We say which time we don't know, but it's a fascinating case. This time, y'all, Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Huda, Lo Nechliku Amen B'Chachamim Ala Posek Ma'ez B'Chasna. Pashat Lo Asarayal, She'echol B'Chi She'Tomar Abba Chasak Alai, Ma Ani Yechola La'asos. So that's very interesting. A different case study here. In this price, they're quoting the same case. But in this case, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Huda posits that everyone agrees in a case where the father defaulted on the agreement he made, that Ruvain can't hold Rachel hostage in this marriage. And Rachel has every right to say, "I didn't default. Either marry me or divorce me, but don't keep me in this state." Sa'amada. So we're realizing that focus on Lamed and Adon. Ashakoske he alatzma. Oh. I will say in the Bryce's version, when the father defaulted, everyone agrees that Reuben can't hold Rachel. I just really need to say this. Everyone is going to agree that on a conceptual level, a man should never hold his wife in a marriage. Right? That's never something that Chazal wants. Why British Baruch created the system of people in a way which seems to give the husband much more power, sometimes even absolute power. I don't know. That's a question that you don't ask. You have to ask Kosh Baruch that question after 120. Or Eliyahu Navi will come. They will explain to us why that Allah seems to really be heavily slanted to give the man the power. But again, this is a legal discussion. So legal discussions sometimes do not enter into an arena of what is right. We all know this. Right? We teach this to our kids. Just because something is mutter, right? Just because it's permissible, does not mean it should be done. So again, we're talking about what's permissible, right? So Chachamim say again, it's permissible for him to use the marriage as leverage to go ahead and extract money from his father. It's legal. It's legal. Is it right? Is it right? Of course it's not right. Of course it's not right. So it's just important to understand that. Which I know everyone does, but sometimes it's just important. Like, as you get older, especially, you learn that even when everyone knows something, it's still important to say it. And I will say, by the way, this extends, all this person has to dissolve in marriage, again, should never ever be used as leverage. Again, should never be used as a mechanism or a tool to extract something that a husband, like, it's not what Chazal, it's not what Baruch wants, it's not what Chazal wants. And the truth is, nothing good ever comes from holding another human being, and nothing good ever comes by using halacha as a means of extortion. Okay, back to our here. So again, so the Brisa has a different view on this, right? So in the Brisa's version, Rabbi Chachamim and Admon both agree that what? That Allah Maisa, there was the father who made the financial arrangement with Reuben, and that the father defaults. Or I don't know some other ways. Again, default doesn't pay whatever it is. So everyone agrees, from the Rabbi Huda, that Allah Maisa, Rachel says to Reuben, "You're marrying your husband, but you cannot keep me in this limbo state." So what's the not focus? What's not focus? What happens if Rachel promised Reuben money? Right? So before they do Kiddushin, Rachel says to Reuven, listen, you Mekadosh me, and if you're Mekadosh me, I'm going to give you $10,000. Okay, so now what happens? Reuven's Mekadosh Rachel, and then what happens? Rachel doesn't pay. Rachel doesn't pay. Won't pay, can't pay, doesn't pay. So I say, so now watch this. Shacham become Sefer Shid Ashikabu. No shah. The Chachamim say, listen, Rachel, you made a promise. The honor you committed. Reuven is not completely to do Nisuin with you until you figure this out. So you can go into a holding pattern over here until you, Rachel, figure out how to satisfy the obligation you entered into. Admon Omer, Admon says, listen to this. Admon says, so what could she say in this case? This is great. She says, no. When I said I'm going to give you $10,000, I figured the same bank that has been bankrolling my life up until this point in time. Right? It's incredible. No credit limits, right? No pre-qualifications, nothing. I figured the same bank that was taking care of me my entire life is going to take care of me now. So she said, I know I said that I was going to pay you, but again, I automatically assumed that it was my father who was going to go ahead and pay for this Medina. ועכשיו שאין הבנות חסין עליי, מה אני יכול לעשות? או כנוס או כתור. What do you want from me? What do you want from me? Yeah, I guess, in other words, what Rothschild says, for example, is, I'm not purchase things over here. I never had the money to back up this promise, right? I never had the money to back up the promise. It was always going to be my father. Now my father doesn't want to pay. Okay, don't hold me hostage in this relationship. Either marry me or divorce me. So I will say, so I just want to point out over here, so the is now explaining that there's two versions of this machlokes. In our Mishnah's version, right, the machlokes case is where the father of the bride, the father of Rachel promised and then doesn't pay. Chachamim say, okay, Reuven can wait, Reuven can do that, Reuven goes to a holding pattern until the Shver pays off. Right? Admon says she could say to him, this is not my fault, either divorce me or marry me. But don't go and keep me in this holy state. Right? Raisa now says, no, in that case where the father defaults, everyone agrees that Rachel can tell Reuven either divorce or marry me, decided to do it. What's the machlokes case? Where Rachel promises the money. So the Chachamim say, listen, Rachel, you made a promise. Make good on the promise. If you don't make good on the promise, then has no obligation towards you. You go into a holding pattern. Admiral says, no. When Rachel says, I made the promise, my father, I was relying on my father. So ultimately, don't hold it against me. You marry me as a incredible. I'm going to go. Rabbi Rothschild says, and therefore say in the Brisa, again in the Brisa, you have Rabbi Rothschild agreeing with so Tana, so let's analyze this. When is this so? When is this so? Says the Gemara. That's Amurim Bigdola about the kind of perfect. Let's say when is all of this said? Right, exclusively the Brisa. I was talking about the adult girl, but with a Kitano, with a minor, we will force him. We will force him. So Gemara says, "Open your mind." Force who? Force who to do what? If ultimately the idea that they will come out forcing the father to pay off, so they'll say it makes much more sense to force the father in a case of the Gidola than it does to force him in a case of the Kitana. Why? Because we'll say we're talking about a case where the Kitana promised money. Right? Rachel was promised money to Reuven. What's the halachic weight of that promise? Not there. Right? It wasn't kind of so if you're going to be talking about a case where you're forcing the father to pay off, it makes more sense to force the father to pay off in a case where the Dola daughter made a commitment. So the Gemara says, they call me back. Ella Amarava hoping the Baal Litinga. Now the Rabbi says, no. What it means is you force the husband to give a get. So it's like, halacha, when I start talking about a case of the Kitana, so because you look at the Kitana, and the commitment of the Kitana, ultimately again, I'm not binding. Therefore, halacha will force the husband to give it back. We'll see how that plays out in the Rambam. So let's finish this piece. Ultimately, we'll go back to the Rambam. So listen to this. So Amar Rabbi Yitzchak ben Elazar Moshe B'Chizkiah. So you'll say, now we're going back to the Mishnah. Any time that you find that Rabbi Gamliel says, right, any place where you find Rabbi Gamliel said halacha follows Amon, halacha k'mosa. The halacha indeed follows it. Amali Rabbi Rav Nachman, Raisa. Is that true? Even in the Raisa, just in the Mishnah. In other words, now we're saying, whenever Rabbi Gamliel says the halacha follows Admon, the halacha follows Admon. So is that true just in the Mishnah? And the Raisa as well. Amali Mikam in the Mishnah. Did I say just in the Mishnah? Listen to what I'm saying. I said any place. Any place means what? A Mishnah or a Brisa. Any time that the Gamliel says the halacha follows Admon, the halacha follows Admon. Incredible. I'm Rabbi Yonah, based on Shama Hanan halacha Yotze Bo. Right, ultimately, and so listen to this. Now, what Rabbi Zera said in the Rabbi Yonah, in the two situations, ultimately again, where based on Shamar Hanan Yotzebo, right? Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said that the halacha follows Hanan. The halacha follows Hanan. Shiva Dran Shamar Admon in halacha Yotzebo. But ultimately, again, the 7 cases where Admon said the halacha, and Rabbi Gamliel said that the halacha like Admon, the halacha does not follow Admon. So, right? What does this mean? Even Mahi Kaman. Shnei Dran Shamar Hanan halacha Kimoso Yotzebo. So it means like it. The two halachas that Hanan brought down, and ultimately again, Yosef, or those who pass like Hanan, the halacha follows them. The Shiva Dharm Shama Admon in halacha Kimos, and look Yosef, the 7 cases that are brought up in the Admon, the halacha neither follows Admon, nor like the ones who pass like Admon. I've already stuck in a lot. Welcome, Shema Rabbi Gamliel. So we just said before that any time that Rabbi Gamliel said, I see the words of Admon to be correct, that the halacha follows Rabbi Gamliel, the halacha follows Rabbi Gamliel, Admon, and those who pass like it. Allah is to say. In the two situations where Hanan said, halacha, the halacha follows him, and those who pass like first one I never said. Shiva Dram Shama Admon Ein Halacha Kiyotzebo. So we'll say that the 7 cases where Admon brought down his halacha does not follow him. So the Gemara says, I'm sorry, Ein Halacha Kiyotzebo. The halacha doesn't follow those who quote him. Hakimoso Halacha B'Chapilu. It sounds like just Admon by himself that the halacha would follow him. Or Rabbi Yitzchak ben Elazar Moshe B'Chizkiah, we must understand in these cases that's happening. There is Admon stating the halacha, and then you have the Rabbi Gamliel bringing in that the halacha follows Admon. That's the key Yotzebo. We're going to just remember the distinction between when Admon says the halacha himself versus when you have Rabbi Gamliel, when you think, the halacha follows him. I, the Hamar of Yitzchak ben Elazar Moshe B'Chizkiah, the Malcolm Shamar Rabbi Gamliel, Ron is to be Admon halacha so. But we just said before that whenever Rabbi Gamliel said, I see the words of Admon to be correct, that the halacha follows him. So the Gemara says, Amar in, lo Amar lo. It sounds like the halacha only stops Admon when Rabbi Gamliel voices his support. When Rabbi Gamliel doesn't voice his support, then the halacha won't follow Admon. Halacha goes what it means to say, Shnei Dvarim Shamar Hanan halacha Kimoso Kiyot Sebo. That is what it means to say. The two situations, the two things that Hanan said that the halacha fought. In the 2 cases where Hanan quoted the halacha, Kiyot Sebo, others supported him. ultimately again halacha policy. Shiva dvarim sha'amar admon yesh men shalacha kimos kiyosebo yesh men she'in halacha kimoso elo kiyosebo. The chosik but by admon there are some situations where halacha l'maisa the halacha will follow him. Others find that the halacha will only follow him when he's quoted in the name of others. They will say anything Rabbi Gamliel says that halacha follows admon, the halacha follows admon, but not necessarily in the other cases. So they'll say, so the Gemara is essentially just trying to go back and forth, trying to figure out find a principle that can apply to the rulings of admon and halal. And they'll say, you see the halacha l'maisa, there is no overarching principle. In fact, each of these cases are reckoned independent. As we're going to see in just a moment. So Rabbi say, halacha l'maisa, let's close out the sugya. How do we pass over? So this is really a great case. Money's promised, and what happened? Money's not paid. Now the only problem is, at the time of default, what's the status of the marriage? The status of the marriage? Kedushin has already been done. So now we have a problem. So Rabbi say, if you default before Kedushin, fine. So then what? Don't get married. Everybody go home. That's it. The problem we have over here is the default happens after Kedushin before Nisun. Furthermore, two cases of default. What are the two cases of default? Case A, father default. Case B, Rachel, daughter, wife default. Well, same method. Focus, Admon, Kachavim. Then there's a further focus, Mishnah and the Brisa as to when the focus applies. So I'll say, here we go. Rama Basmans. Elchos Ishos. Parak of Gimel. Halacha Tes Zayin. I missed this person asked me a couple of weeks ago why I always bring the Rambam and I have to show for that one. So we should only going to the Rambam and the Shulchan has to be the same way. In general, the derech of the Rambam is that the Rambam's formulation of halacha is often much truer to the text of the Gemara. So if you're just trying to extrapolate halacha l'maisa from the Gemara, the notion of the Rambam often tethers you to the sugya much more, whereas the Shulchan Aruch already is a distilled version of that halacha. So again, the bottom line is say the same thing. Listen to what the Rambam says. Here we go. Great case. Haposik bos lefasno. So this is great. So here's how the Shulchan sets up the case. Right? So what happens? Rachel's going to marry Ruben. Rachel's father, we'll call him Yaakov. Right? Rachel's father commits to $10,000 to Rachel's husband, to Ruben. The Halach ha'av l'medina acheres. The father relocates to another country. Sorry? Country. Another place. He goes out. Like, Yicholi hi nomer lebar. Ani lo tasakti al atzmi. Ma'an yichol l'lasos. O kinos belong to no, o patrein begat. So I'm going to say, number one, we must be like Admon in the Mishnah. When it was the father who defaulted, Rachel says to her husband, listen, I didn't make the agreement. Either divorce me or marry me. Right? But don't keep me in the So don't say that's halacha. One, like Amor in the Mishnah. Aval, Pasiki alatzma, V'lo yada, Areis yayosh Jabez ad shetimsa ma shepaska o ad shepalas. So that's an interesting enough halach l'maisa. You keep asking like the Chachamim in the Brisa. If she is the one who made the commitment, then ultimately she has to figure out a way to honor it. And he has no obligation to do anything until she figures out how to honor this commitment. Now let's remember again, this is where she made the commitment. Remember, Admon's out for her. Was that, remember again, what was Admon's out for her? What was out for her? I didn't promise, I know it was me, that I'm an extension of my father, right? In other words, so when I say, I promise you, you my father. So the Rambam asking like the Chachamim in the Grace's case, namely that when she makes the commitment, Rachel herself makes the commitment to Ruvain, and then defaults, Ruvain can keep a holding pattern of conclusion until she comes up with the money. And ultimately, again, doesn't have to either marry her or divorce her to wait. Once again, I will say, this is the legal ruling. Moral, ethical. Should a man ever keep a woman in a relationship over money? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Again, if she says, give me more time, I'm happy to go and try to figure out how to that's fine. She wants the time. But again, this is the legal ruling, not the moral, ethical, or so it says, halacha l'maisa, you pass like admiral. The Mishnah, therefore, again, if father defaults, Ruvain can't hold Rachel in a relationship. If Rachel defaults, he has the ability to go into a holding pattern which will profit the money. Incredible. Mishnah, I say, very interesting case. Or Allah saw the Chazon. This wasn't looking at the background. Let's take a look at Rashi. First Rashi in the Mishnah. First Rashi in the Mishnah. So let's say in the short lines of Rashi, 2, 4, 6, 7 lines into the short lines. Rashi says, Ha'ora Allah, watch this. This is fascinating. Ruvain ma'arer al sadash yad Shimon. So let's say, so here's the case. Shimon has a field. Ruvain is claiming the field really belongs to me. It was stolen from me, and you bought it. Illegally. Now again, he's not accusing Shimon of being complicit in the theft. He's just saying, Shimon, you think you own the field is really mine. Okay, fine. Now watch this. Ruvain ma'arer al sadash yad Shimon. Levi Shemach on the past doesn't mean anything. I guess here's the case. Right? You've got Ruvain, Shimon, and Levi. Shimon is in current possession of a field that he bought from Levi. So Levi sold Shimon a field. Ruvain says, Shimon, that field you have, that's my field. Levi stole it from me and sold it to you. Okay, here's the wrinkle. The Mishnah says, Fasale means, or say that when Levi sold the field to Shimon, they drew up a document, and one of the witnesses on the bill of sale is Ruvain. So Ruvain is a witness. Ruvain is a witness on the sale document from Levi to Shimon, and now Ruvain, who's one of the witnesses, says to Shimon, Father, the field is stolen. Rashi will pasul. So let's say, so now obviously, like, what's going on here exactly? Like, so Reuben is claiming, so Shimon, the field you bought from Levi is with Levi stole it from me and sold it to you. And now we look at the paperwork and we see that Reuben himself is one of the witnesses on the bill of sale from Levi to Shimon. So what's the halacha over here? Admon Omer, unless it's not a problem. You say to Reuben, so obviously you ask Reuben, I don't understand. If the field, if Levi stole the field from you, then why would you agree to sign Shtar Mechira? Why would you agree to sign the bill of sale? Armon says there's a perfect answer for this. Hashini no Achim. Halisha Kashem Imenu. So let's listen to this. Because Reuben can say, listen, Levi is a Gazda. Right? Levi is a right? And if he's a strong guy, I knew I never had any chance of getting the field back from me. But Shimon, I know you're a reasonable guy. So I figured if I could get the field away from Levi to you, Shimon, now I have a better chance of getting back my stolen field. That's why I agreed to sign on the bill of sale so I could get it out of Levi's hands into your hands. Incredible. It was another reality. I'm just saying, like, this is so great. This is incredible. So let's now listen to this. Chacham say, no, come on, cut it out. Even as if so. Well, what are you talking about? Ruvain, if you come forward with a claim that the field that Shimon currently has is stolen from you, that's fine. Okay, myself. Once you're signing onto once you're not a party, but once you're a witness to the transaction, you've lost any right to claim that this property belongs to you, even as Sefuso. So it's a little Rashi. Actually, even as Sefuso, the whole of the chasam, hold the she'in law except. Because essentially what that says is like this: the act of signing on a document, or the act of witnessing a document of sale, a transaction, sale transaction, is effectively saying what? This field has nothing to do. You're giving up any rights to the field. So they will say fundamentally about this. On the flip side, I saw a similar affair. Sorry, on the flip side, I saw a similar affair. So we'll say, look at this case, look at Rashi. I saw a muhsik bar similar affair. Shalom machal ruben zeha oyer alel elo liish affair. Ayo mocher sadam tzaitu. Umeitzaler arba cause. Sorry, I saw that. Pasuk the Netzarim made up only Sadashim, but also Sadashim. So let's say now watch this case. So let's say for a moment that Reuven now owns the disputed field, right? I'm sorry, Shimon, right? So Shimon owns the disputed field. So now what does Shimon do? Shimon sells another piece of property, right? So let's say now, let's call the disputed field A. Field A, right? So same case, right? Reuven bought the field from, Shimon bought the field from Levi, right? Then there's Reuven. Reuven, of course, is claiming that Levi stole the field from him and now sold it to Reuven. Sold it to Shimon. I'm sorry. One more time, I'm going to get this right. Right, so we'll say, so again, remember, Levi sells a field to Shimon. Right? In the back of all of this, you have Reuven claiming that Levi really sold that field to him. And now, all right, stole last time. Right? Levi sells a field to Shimon. Good, beautiful. Reuven now is claiming that the field that Shimon bought from Levi was stolen from him by Levi. Okay, so that was case one. And case one is where it turns out that Reuven himself is an aid on the bill of sale from Levi to Shimon. Okay, so now what do we do with that? So again, according to Admon, so Chachamim say that that's it. You've lost any claim. You signed on the shtar. You've lost any claim. Admon says, no, there's still another claim. You make a claim. It's easier for me to get the field back from Shimon than it was from Levi. Fine. Case two is Reuven. So Shimon is selling the field. Shimon said, so let's call disputed field is field A. Shimon is selling field B. Field B. It's fine, no problem. So we'll say, often the way when you would sell a field, if it was a field that was next to other fields, the way you would identify the field that you were selling is by identifying the other fields all around it, right? I'm selling you field B that is bordered by fields A, D, E. So now in this case over here, Shimon is selling field B. But in the document of sale, he makes reference, he says, field B borders on my other field, field A. Field A. So in this case, field A is being used as a demarcation point, as a border. So right, field A, the dispute is not being sold at all, but it's being used to identify field B, which is the transaction. So now Reuven is using field A, right? Sorry, Shimon, thank you. Shimon is using field A as just to identify the border of the field that is being sold. I will say, Reuven is signing on this document also. Reuven is signing on this document. So now, here's the shayla. Now, in this transaction, in this document, so Shimon is selling field B. Selling field B is also what, so to speak, solidifying his ownership over field A, because he's used field A to identify one of the borders of field B. Reuven was claiming that this field A was originally his, signing his document. So now both say, so now what's going to happen after this is over? So now Reuven is going to want to come back and say to Shimon, by the way, field A is mine. It was stolen from me by Levi, who subsequently sold it to you. The Mishnah says no. So Simon La'achar Ibn Esim. At the end of the day, even Admon agrees, which is interesting. Even Admon agrees in this case, that once Reuven signed on this type of shtar, which used the contested field as a border for the field being sold, everyone agrees that Reuven has relinquished any further rights to claim that the field is his. Okay, interesting. Let's go. Rabbi. Okay, let's go back to that first case. Great. Let's go back to the first case. That's what I'm going to It's good. Let's say so. No, but the truth is, I realize that this we actually have to stay on target because the truth is, Rosh is Tuesday, Wednesday, right? So the truth is, Tuesday and Wednesday's davening are a little bit, and Monday, a little bit long. So we gotta stay, and we only have 45 minutes on Tuesday and Wednesday. So, but we're gonna be fine. So let's say, here we go. Let's say, so listen to this. All right, bye. So we'll say now we're focusing on case number one. So once again, let's just get back to case number one. Right? Shimon purchases a field from Levi. There's a document, right? And the document that says that Levi sold the field to Shimon. One of the witnesses is Reuven. Reuven then comes after the sale is complete. Then Reuven comes to Shimon and says, Shimon, the field is mine. Levi stole it from me. What? Signed on the document. So again, Chachamim say, sorry, Reuven, you no longer have any claim because Halakha Mesa, you signed on the document. Sorry, you were a witness. We're done. Almon says no. Reuven has a claim. Yes, I signed the document in order to get it out of Levi's hands. Your hands shouldn't be the felt and I have better chance with you of getting back my land. Fine. So now Bye says, Lo Shano Ella 8. That's only true. In fact, all of this is only true. If Halakha Mesa, Reuven signed the Machlokas, it's only if Reuven signed as a witness. About Dayan Lo Reuven has his. This is fascinating. So let's say if it's really incredible. So if Halakha Mesa, Reuven served as a Dayan, as a judge, everyone agrees that he can still make the claim of theft, even though he was the judge over the document. What is that? We're going to say, why do you need a judge in this case? Look at Rashi about Dayan. Sherubish time of three things in the Kaimo, Mishpat Kiyum Shtaris, Sha'idin Boim, Sab Yadam, Dayanim Kosim Shtara Dinan Nafta Kadmana, Basidu Sadia Hasino Sarah Bashir. So I say, watch this. Let's say again, they come to Bezdin to certify document. Kiyum Shtaris. We've spoken about certification of documents once and over again. What is Kiyum Shtaris? The danger of documents. On one hand, in halacha, document, right? You have a signed shtar. So that's incredible. The problem is, somebody go ahead and forge. Right? Can you forge a shtar? Sure. So there's a concept of shtar certification. We call it kiyum shtaris. What's the process of kiyum shtaris? Bring your shtar to Bezdin. Right? The Bezdin takes a look at it. The Bezdin brings in testimony, or brings in the witnesses to certify that is that is their signature. We write a little pen pick right? We write a little either on the document itself or an attached document, and done. The shtar is certified. So the Mishnah is incredible. So Abaye suggests like this: the machlokes Almon and the Chachamim in the first case of the Mishnah is only where Ruvain signed as a witness of the transaction. But if he was a dayan on the base that certified the document, that does not erode his ability to later on claim that the field was stolen from him. Why, Rabbi say? This is actually fascinating. We tell you, Rabbi Chia, Ein ha'ibn chosin al ashtar ela im kein karo. Aval on the base, Aval hadayonim chosmin aval pi shelo karo. We'll say absolutely incredible. When you witness a transaction, like when you sign as an aide, we'll say, what are you signing on? What are you signing on? You're signing on the validity of the transaction. Like that's what you're signing on. That I witness this transaction. This transaction is binding, valid, and legal. When you're a dayan for kiyum shtaros, they will say, what are you certifying? What are you certifying? Signatures. You are not certifying the transaction. In fact, the dayan, sometimes by kiyum shtaros, the dayanim aren't even reading what's been done. Like, because I'm not certifying the transaction. I have no idea about the transaction. Kiyum shtaros is there just simply to certify the signatures on the document itself. But it has nothing to do with it. It's so fascinating. So fascinating. So you can have a situation of kiyum shtaros, which makes sense, I will say, because otherwise, kiyum shtaros requires a whole certification of the transaction. And what's the point of the shtar? And what does the shtar do? The shtar, right? The edus on the shtar locks in the transaction. Kiyum shtar certifies the signature. So this is incredible. So I will say, in a case where Reuben was a dying kiyum shtar, so now let's play this out, right? So Levi sells Levi sells a field to Shimon, and then what happens? They draw up a document, and now they want to bring the document to Beis Din for certification. Reuben is one of the dayanim on the Beis Din to certify, right? Reuben's Beis Din certifies the document, and then after it's certified, Reuben says to Shimon, by the way, the field is stolen from me. Everyone agrees in that case, Reuben has a valid claim. When we say Reuben has a valid claim, obviously saying something was stolen from you is not a claim. I mean, it's a claim. What it means is Reuben now has the right to what? Pursue that claim, right? So again, why? And everyone agrees in that case. Everyone agrees in that case. Why? Because Reuben's acting as a dayan for kiyum shtaros has not to do with the transaction. All Reuben was doing is just saying, oh yeah, the signatures we can say we can speak. You guys recognize the signatures? Fantastic. Go, sign it up, right? And then we're done. Certified. We're done. So everyone agrees in that case, it in no way erodes his claim to go ahead and pursue the stolen, right, the stolen claim. The claim that the land was stolen from him. Masha'in came, when he's a witness to the actual transaction, sale from Levi to Shimon. In that case, again, part of signing on a shtar is what? You are claiming the transaction itself is valid. When we say claim the transaction is valid, you can't go ahead and now claim that same parcel is stolen from you. Admon says, yes, I can. The transaction was valid. In other words, yes, Levi sold to Shimon. But at the end of the day, it's my land. Good. So says the Gemara. But I saw a similar act. I was supposed to say the next case in the Mishnah was, I remember again, right? So same case, but let's say, well, not same case. In this case, Shimon the purchaser, Shimon the purchase contested property. We call it parcel A. Shimon is selling parcel B and uses parcel A to identify the borders of parcel B. Reuben himself signs on that shtar as well, or not as well, but Reuben signs on that shtar. The Mishnah says everyone agrees that after he sells on that shtar, he no longer has the right to pursue anything around this building. The parcel is the Rabbi. Lo shana ala. That's only true ultimately again. Rashi said, Lo shana la'achar. Dafka nakat masnisin simin la'achar. Aval asah hamuchsakda simili atzmo shel Ruben za'ora la'asvasa. Listen to this. That's only true when what? When Shimon is selling the parcel to someone else. What happens if Shimon is selling the parcel to Ruben himself? Shimon is selling parcel B to Ruben. And now it happens to be in that sale, Shimon uses parcel A, which is the contested property, as a border, a border identification. Then ultimately in that case, even though Ruben, right, no even as Ruben did not go ahead and lose out on his ability to reclaim parcel A. Why? The Amar, Idla Avdi, because he would say, if I would not agree to this, we'll have a masculine Mechili. Then ultimately again, Shimon would not sell me the property. In other words, I will say, the concern over here is that if Shimon knows that Reuben is going to be claiming parcel A, he's going to be reticent to what? Sell him parcel B. So Reuben wants to buy parcel B. If I lodge my complaint now, then I'm not going to get parcel B. And certainly, again, leaving aside parcel A. So the Gemara says, so what could Reuben have done? So maybe what Reuben could have done is what? Before he purchases parcel B from Shimon, on the side of this, say, listen, don't tell you guys. I'm purchasing parcel B from Shimon. In a transaction, Shimon is saying that parcel B, right, borders on Shimon's other parcel A. Guys, I just want to tell you, Ruben's saying this is kind of like a sidebar. I'll tell you guys, parcel is really mine also. Really mine also. He was told that if not saying anything now, he's not allowed to on this transaction. Maybe that's what you should say. Make him go, machol. Right, let him go. Someone says, yeah, that'll work really well. Chavra islay. The chavra islay. This is great. But your friend has a friend, and the friend of your friend has a friend. Which I will say is another way of saying, don't rely on anyone's confidentiality. Right? So the nice again, if Ruben says something, so to speak, in confidence to the witnesses, they're going to say something, and what's going to happen? It's going to cause the whole transaction about partially to fall into jeopardy. Good. The Gemara says as follows. So Chav the Chav is like Hahu Dasa Simon. So what says now? Listen to this. In this case, so the case over here is, so let's go back. So we'll say, so this is just a unique case over here. So remember, let's go back. The Mishnah said that in a case where Ruben is now signed on a shtar, right, is a witness to a document where Shimon is selling parcel B to another party, but in parcel B, he's using parcel A, the contested parcel, as one of the borders. And Ruben signs on that document. Ruben gives up his right to any more claim parcel A. That's only true. That now Abai gives a qualification. That's true if Shimon was selling it to another party. But if Shimon was selling it to Ruben himself, so Ruben doesn't object to the use of parcel A as a border, that's because Ruben doesn't want to call into jeopardy the whole transaction. Fine. So now go back to the original case. So let's go back to the Mishnah's original case. Right, so the Mishnah's original case, Salah Rabbi said now, so Ruben is an aid on the shtar where Shimon is selling parcel B using parcel A as a border. So what happens? So I say after the transaction happens, now what happens? So Ruben claims, by the way, parcel A is mine. But what happened? Shafik, then he died. Ruben died. Right, so Ruben died. This story is closest, right? Right, Ruben died after raising the objection to the ownership of parcel A. Okay. What happens? But We'll say, so now again, so after Reuben passed away, right? Either Reuben made provisions for this beforehand, or the basin or appointed an apotropos. Now there's an executor of Reuben's estate. Okay, so Asa Patrol coming down Abaye. So the apotropos came before Abaye. Amarle saw similar. So now what happens? The apotropos is coming. And why is he coming? The apotropos is saying, listen, before Reuben died, Reuben claimed that field A belonged to him. So the apotropos says, I am coming to follow up on that claim. I'm coming to follow up on that claim. Okay, so Abai says, listen, Abai says, there's no claim. He says, listen, Krishna. Normally I saw similar even as Sikuso. We already learned this case. We learned this case. Reuben signed onto this document where Shimon used field A as a border for identification for field B. And the Mishnah says, once you do that, you go ahead and you relinquish all of your rights. Nothing more to talk about. To which the apotropos says, you're right, but Amar Hava Avason Yasmikayim Hava Time Amar Elam Echarasisila. Very interesting. So I will say, so the apotropos says, if Reuben was still alive, but Reuben would say, yes, I agree that I signed on a document where Reuben used field A as a border for field B. It's really the only thing I was agreeing to was that perhaps Shimon owns a narrow strip of field A. A narrow strip of field A. That's what he owned. That's what he owned. So the Gemara says, Amalei, Shabir Ka'amet. So the truth is that's a good kind. Rabbi Yochanan in Kava Aman Kalam Akara Sisi Lecha Ne'aman. So we'll say it's actually very interesting. Very interesting. That the claim over here is that halacha l'maisa, right? That if I go ahead, right, Rabbi Yochanan says, in Talmud Amar, let's say I sold you a field, right? The field is mine, and the only thing I sold you in that field was a narrow strip. Such a claim could actually be believed. So the Gemara is supposed to see what's happening over here. So in other words, Reuben signed on this document that where Shimon was selling the field to another party, Shimon was selling field B. Field B was sold with a border identification of field A. Reuben signed on it. After Reuben signed on it, the transaction happened. And Reuben said, by the way, field A is mine. It was stolen from me by Levi. After that, Reuben dies. Apotropos comes along and tries to spelling up the affairs of the state, becomes Abaye, and the Apotropos, listen, Reuben claimed the stolen field was his. Abaye says, that's fine, field A was his. Ben says, that's fine, but if it's a Mishnah, right? Reuben signed on that document. He signed that document using field A as a border for field B, he abdicated all rights to the field. To which the Apotropos says, no, perhaps if he was here, would have claimed all Shimon really owned in that field was just a narrow strip. That's what he was identifying as the border. To which Abaye says, that's a good thing. But ultimately, again, you still should have to go ahead. So in other words, now Abaye says the apotropos, even if that's a good claim, so that's fine, but you still have to leave in Shimon's possession a narrow strip. So Havi Alei, Livchad B'Tiklei. So we'll say, here's the problem. On the narrow strip, there was a line of palm trees, which made that narrow border strip pretty valuable. So the Gemara says, so Amar you have a book, Yasmikayim, have a toin va'amar, Kazarti v'lakachti imenu. This is great. It's good Apotropos, by the way. Apotropos says, if Reuben was alive, he could claim, while it's true that I sold that border strip back to Shimon, I then subsequently repurchased it. Abaye says the truth is Zok Amalei Shaker Ka'amrit, saying good. Then Rabbi Yochanan in Tan Ba'amar Chazak Atilakaki Never Ne'eman. So we'll say ultimately again Reuben were to claim I sold it, but then I repurchased it. You believe? I will say the reason that is because this is Rashi says, Pesha Asar wa Pesha Hitia. The case over here is look at Rashi Naaman. Here's the case, just to get the business totality. Naaman, the Pesha Asar wa Pesha Hitia, the Me'at Akashish Edim Shaisa Shalom. So I will say the case over here is where, remember, Shimon sold the field, Levi sold the field to Shimon. Reuven, and then again, it gets more complicated. But now what happens? What happens? So now you have Reuven, now you have Shimon, excuse me, all together. Here we go. All together. You have Levi selling the field to Shimon, field A. Okay, fine. Now what happens? Shimon sells field B to another party. But in that transaction, he uses field A as a border identification. Reuven signs on that shtar, that bill of sale that Shimon makes for another party, a field B. Afterwards, what happens? Shimon, so Reuben says, field A is mine. It was stolen from me by Levi and sold to you, Shimon. So remember again, strict halacha in the Mishnah is we don't believe Reuben. You sign on that document, we don't believe you. I will say, in this case, it's becoming a little bit more complicated. In this case, what happens is, Reuben goes ahead and claims the field is stolen from him. Not only that, Reuben brings witnesses. He brings Avis. That's Rashi filling in the blank video. He brings witnesses. But I will say, after he goes in and brings witnesses, what happens? He dies. He died. Okay, now what happens? Apotropis comes to Abaye. Apotropis says, listen, I'm here to call up on Reuben's claims. Abaye says, there is no claim. It's a Mishnah. Reuben signed on the document. Apotropis says, but he has Eidos. Abaye says, hold on a second. Essentially, the Eidos is negated in the face of what? Reuben's signature. In other words, once Reuben signs on that document, he effectively signs away his rights. Which the Apotropis says, no. What you understand is, he actually went ahead and sold back. Right? He sold to Shimon a strip of land. Abaye says, okay. So now what you're telling me is, when Reuben signed in the document, he wasn't yielding his rights to the rest of the field. What was he acknowledging? That Shimon owns a strip of land of field A that borders on field B. But that in no way is yielding his rights to the rest of field A. That's good. But Abaye says, okay, that's fine, so you can pursue your claim on the rest of field A. But what? But you have to go ahead and at least leave in Shimon's possession what? The strip of land. To which Apotropis says, but 1 second, there's more to the story. Reuben bought back the strip of land from Shimon. He bought it back. To which Abaye says, which Reuben is saying, look, why? Because they will say, this is the passion, why? Because the only way we knew about the sale was through Reuben. Right? In other words, right through Reuben. We didn't know about the sale. Without the sale, all you would have is what? He was saying that the mice of the field was stolen from Reuben. So now Reuben, so to speak, was Apotropis telling us that a sale happened of the strip. Now Reuben's further qualifying and telling us after the sale occurred, Reuben bought it back from Shimon. It's a Pesha, also a Pesha Hitter case, in which case Reuben / the Apotropis should be believed. It turns out that Reuben should really be able to walk away, assuming he could prove his claim, that he should really be able to walk away with the field in its entirety, including the strip of palm trees. Incredible. Amar Abaye, so what's the takeaway from the story? Amar Abaye, Haiman Demoka Apotropa, Nokim Ki Hat Yadala Apotropa Bias. The entire takeaway is you gotta get an Apotropis like this. Right? I will say this is you gotta surround yourself with good people. Right? This Apotropis Abaye says knew exactly what he was doing. Good. So I will say, so for our purposes, halacha l'maisa. How do we pause this? I will say this is a complicated case. That is a very complicated case. Remember again, we'll say what we have essentially in vetted in this case. There's a couple of different cases. Just because I'm just going to tell you quickly. Rama Paskins, this is an Ilchos Toin V'Nitan, Perek Tes Zayin, Halachas Aleph and Beis. We're not going to have time for everything. I'm going to leave out the Talent case. I'm just going to give you the Mishnah. Here it is. Reuven Shemachar the Shimon Sadeh. Reuven sent the field. Reuven sold the field to Shimon. V'haya Levi Me'eviashta Akisim. Now I'm changing this today. So I'm going to keep it like we had it, right? So let's say, Levi sold the field to Shimon, and Reuben was one of the witnesses on the shtar. And what happens? Subsequently, right? Reuben claims after the transaction occurs. Reuben claims that what? That Allah Kalamaisa, Levi stole it from me. Aim Shomon. The Rambam Paskin is like the no. Even though I remember again, you're going to claim yes. I signed on it because I wanted it to go from Levi to Shimon because I feel a better chance getting my field back from Shimon than from Levi. The Rambam says, case closed. Halacha l'maisa, right? Halacha l'maisa. There's absolutely nothing to talk about once you are party to the transaction, right? Once you are a witness on that shtar, you have effectively ceded and yielded any rights that you have to claim that field as your own. However, the Rambam says, if Reuben acted as a dayan for Kiyuv Shtaris, he does not yield or cede any future rights. Again, going back to the distinction of the Gemara. Now, Allah Lamaisa, an aid certified is the transaction. A dayan only certifies signature. So everyone will say, Allah Lamaisa, we don't pass like Admon in this Mishnah, we pass like that. There's more, much more. Again, Hilchos Toin V'Nitan, Perek Tazayin, Halachos Aleph and Beis. Take a look at it. You're all a lot more interesting than it is, but that's the halacha l'maisa. Good. Mishnah, quickly. Misha halacha l'ginas hayad. The derech sadeu. I say again, it just gets better. Listen to this case. And we'll say, by the way, you ask yourself, what does this have to do with Ksuvas? So first of all, it's so good, so who cares? Right? That's answer number one. Right? That's number one. So remember again, the reason, just so you know, in all seriousness, the reason why we're doing this is because remember, the way this parak started off were with the rulings of Admon and Hanan. And remember again, it started off with a discussion about Mizonos, that's which is Ksuvas. Now, let's say we're just going through all of their rulings. Watch, this is a great case. Misha, Allah from Medina says, we'll say, watch this case. Reuben goes overseas. Now, Reuben owns a field. Now, we'll say, interestingly enough, the case over here is Reuben's field is landlocked, which means that the only way he was ever able to get into his field is how he had a right of way. He had a right of way with someone. So what happened? So Misha, so we'll say, so now what's the problem? He comes back, he's been away for a while. He can't remember the right of way. Where is my right of way to get into my field? And of course, as you can imagine, none of the neighbors are being forthcoming. Right? So because obviously no one wants to give up that. No one wants to give up that, right? So Admon Omer, Yelech Lo B'Tzara. Admon says, look, since we have to use logic, figure out what is the shortest way to get into this field, and let's assume that was the previously established right of way. The Chum say no. You have a choice. Either go ahead and pay $50, whoever's willing to negotiate with you, or fly. Right? In other words, right, or fly. Figure out a way to fly. Right? So again, this is actually interesting. The Chum say, listen, Reuben, you went overseas, so lost information. The burden is on you. So pretty much, again, no one has to do anything. So you're going to have to figure out a way to negotiate the $5 right of pass. So my time with the Rabbanon, Shabbat Galan, I understand. What's the logic of the Rabbanon? It's the reason why the Rabbanon's position doesn't seem to make sense is if there's one thing we know, it's that what? Reuben had a right of way. He had a right of way. Right? What's up? Okay, but the right of way, even today, I know she's moved out. But the right of way agreements are like, you think should be the simplest part of a real estate transaction. It's incredible how complicated right of way agreements are. It's fascinating. In any event, so Gemara says, as far as I understand, Obviously, he has a right of way. This was his field. He used the field. He was getting in and out of his field, so there was a right of way agreement. So Admon is saying, listen, logically, he's going to take the easiest path. So just assume that's what the path he has. What's logical for Rabbi, right? All right, you know, Rabbi, watch this. Don't shit to us. I gave it away a little bit. I'm sorry. Should we do a bit of Adam and Adam with myself? In other words, this is a landlocked field. There's 4 different people. So we'll say, what's the problem? What's the problem? The problem is if you can imagine that using things back, everyone says Shalom Aleichem, and it is Kiddush, maybe Kiddush, it's so beautiful. And then he goes to number one. Was my right of way to here? No, here. Like number 2, don't know. You're either 3, 4. So we'll say, the problem is each has the ability to deflect it to the other. So this is one of these interesting cases where we know a right of way exists, but Ruben can't figure out who it's his first against any one particular party. If that's the case, then again, why does Adnon say that Ruben seemingly sees the shortest right of way? Amarava, very quickly, Ba'arba the Asimikwa Arba. So Ba'arba the Asimikwa Had, Kuli Amalo Pli Yivazi Matri. So what's this to this? When you have 4 people who bought their own respective fields from 4 other people, or for that matter, 4 people who bought their field from 1 person. Everyone agrees in that case, each party could deflect to someone else. Kipli, Gemara says, so Kipli, where does not go to this one? Let's listen to this. The Asimikah Harba. So watch this. Let's say now all 4 fields, all 4 of the landlocked fields, or the landlocking fields, are all owned by 1 person, right? So you've got Reuben in the middle, and all 4 of the surrounding fields are owned by 1 person. Rabbi say who what? Bought it from 4 individual owners. So in this case over here, we'll call him Shimon. Shimon now owns the 4 fields which surround Reuben's field, but Shimon bought it from 4 independent people. Watch this. So Admon says, listen, Reuben could go to Shimon. Give me a right of way. You know that I own a right of way. You can figure out where, but you own it. I own it, so give it to me. Listen to this. Rabbanan said, listen to this. Shimon can say to Reuben like this. Shatat. If you're going to be quiet, be quiet. If you're going to make comments for me, so this. Shimon can say to Reuben, here's the deal. If you want to negotiate, you negotiate. If you're going to make comments, I'm going to
Yo, dog, where were you?
It's going to be owned by 4 independent people.
I don't know if you watched the documentary.
Dog, I watched it. I watched it on double time so that I could catch up to you. And I watched another documentary on Gander because I thought that's the one you were watching at first. So I know so much about Gander. I'm ready to just burst at the seams with my Gander knowledge. The first documentary that I watched about Gander is all about like OG Gander knowledge. So like, pardon me in advance for being such a knowledgeable person about one of my, if not my favorite Newfie town.
Did you see the link?
Yeah, I watched it, baby. I watched the whole thing. I know about the musical. I know about the guy from Ireland and the lady from Canada who have a 7-year age gap and they got married. I know about the 2 gay guys. I know about the cots. I know about the cold Kentucky Fried Chicken. I know all of that.
Oh yeah. Those are secondary Gander documentaries.
All right, so this is how it went down. You're like, hey, I'm gonna start streaming, and I'm like, okay. So I go to watch it, and it just keeps spinning. And I try it another account and another account. I'm like, okay, well, he must not know. So I tell you, and then I figure, you know what? There can't be that many documentaries on some little town in Newfoundland. Boy, was I wrong. So I start watching this other one, and the other one is all about like, it's the same idea, but it's much more about the history of Gander, which is quite fascinating. In fact, I wanted to talk to you guys about. Is your mom there as well?
Okay, we'll say very quickly.
She's pretty tired.
Okay, that's fine.
I'm just taking it out.
Absolutely. I just didn't know if I was talking to you or multiple people. I wanted to say that after having watched this first one, that the town of Gander is fascinating for several reasons. So, it was once like the biggest airport hub in the world, or perhaps just in Canada, but it was giant because planes back in the day had to refuel very often. You know, they didn't have like intercontinental planes, and so they had to refuel somewhere. And Gander's airport was like the best place to do it, whether you were coming from Europe or North America. And then, like the story of Gander is fascinating. That it just like started as a fishing village, but then it was actually just like protected land by the Commonwealth. Basically, it wasn't even part. Newfoundland wasn't even part of Canada until like 1949 or something. Like pretty late. Anyway, it was like it had this like autonomous status, and it was being used for like kind of like secret Canada stuff. For its like planes and things, like, and then they built the airport, and it was fascinating to me that like I forgot that like not everybody always had a private jet. So Gander used to be this place where you could meet like Humphrey Bogart or like Frank Sinatra, maybe like really famous people who were going to Europe who just had to stop over because the plane had to refuel. It's not like you had direct flights. And then the Queen of England came to Gander to dedicate the new airport. It was a big deal. She was in an open air vehicle, and you know, like the people of Gander never thought they'd meet the Queen.
I wonder if that's where like the saying like take a gander.
No, that's incorrect. We'll look at etymology of that.
Yeah, it's a bike.
Alright, so it's like a male goose.
A gander is a male goose. Oh, that's why that mascot is a goose.
Yeah, doggone dude. How little did you watch this documentary? Gander the Commander's obviously a gander, a male goose, because of the name of the town. I mean, did you not pay any attention? Are you not like?
Did they say? I don't think they mentioned that.
No, they didn't.
Goddamn
Yeah.
goose.
So the meaning of look is derived from the image of here.
I'm out here connecting dots in your friend.
Yeah, because I know what's going on. The meaning of look is derived from the image of craning one's neck like a goose. All right. So then the Concorde stopped there. It was like the main hub of the Concorde for like its initial flying out. And the town was a bustling place. They interviewed like the son of the guy who was like the head of the Gander airport, who met Fidel Castro, and Fidel Castro became friends. Like this was like a happening place. And how people would, like, this was a fascinating part. I think it was the first documentary, I don't think it was the second documentary, where people from the Eastern Bloc, no, that was the second documentary. People from the Eastern Bloc would, like, come from, like, the Soviet Union and want to be going to Cuba, and they would go through Canada because the United States wouldn't, like, allow people to come in. And then they would just get off the plane and be like, I want to seek asylum. And then, like, the people would be like, you're not allowed to seek asylum. And they'd be like, or like sometimes they would, well, usually the people of Canada were really nice, but it wasn't even technically Canada. It was like an autonomous region, like semi-autonomous region for a while. So they were just like part of Gander. And okay, so it was just fascinating. Oh, and then also how the town was bustling until the advent of the larger jet planes that basically didn't have to refuel, and that killed the city. And I thought that could be a documentary in itself, but this is like a happening place. You had the Queen there, you had Fidel Castro there, you had Humphrey Bogart there, and like Hollywood celebrities who were on their way to Europe. They had to stop at Gander. It was like called the last, like the edge of the earth or something like that. And then all of that.
Is the position of Gander very like it's St. John?
You don't know. Where Gander?
I didn't look on the map. I didn't look on the map.
Okay, well, I'm going to tell you.
I'm
going to tell you all about it. And let's not forget Labrador. Because that's like a baller ass place too. But Gander is located on the northeastern island of Newfoundland and Labrador, Canada, situated approximately 40 kilometers south of Gander Bay and 310 kilometers northwest of the provincial capital, St. John. Founded in 1936 to support the construction of the Gander International Airport, the town is officially incorporated by 1958 and has a population of 11,880. The town is globally renowned for its aviation history, having been once known as the crossroads of the world due to its role as a critical refueling stop for transatlantic flights. Now, in terms
of St. John is even further east than Gander.
Okay, but it's not as far north.
Essentially, hold me.
I guess they decide that Gander we have to play that.
Until I pay you.
And they were doing some secret stuff in Gander. It was like they didn't really go into it by the documentary, but they did some like plane testing. They certainly did the plane testing when they were launching the concept. So anyway,
part of the reason why they may have used Gander instead of St. John is because of the fog, and potentially St. John's has a lot more fog. I could be wrong.
No, I'm not going with that. I bet they're both foggy as fuck. I bet they're both foggy as I bet they're both foggy as
whatever it is. The point is,
so anyway,
Gander's not right on the water.
Ruben has every right.
Okay, it still can get fogged.
But her father decides to
directly off the coast.
I understand there's marine there. I get that. Everybody knows that. I think that the second one went in much more into like the people of Gander and how they supported the people from the plains and stuff. And I really liked the part about the animals. They had two bonobos. You didn't even talk about the bonobos. You didn't even remember the bonobos.
No, I rare monkeys.
Yeah, why do you call them rare monkeys?
Did you watch the documentary? The lady was asking the pilot if they're rare monkeys.
Yeah. No, at first they didn't want to say.
I was summarizing.
Well, that's perhaps an inaccurate summarization. All right, so then I just thought it was really beautiful. I thought the stories of the people falling in love was really beautiful, and just like this little town of 11,880 people welcomed in like 6,500 individuals from all over the world. People, and like they had that birthday party with Gander the Commander, and they had all the food and the Kentucky Fried Chicken, and the people realizing like, wow, they've been at this all day. The food is so full, and how Gander has a Walmart, and like they were like, well, this can't be that small, and people like were walking there, and they're like, normally you don't get in cars with strangers, but Gander's different. It just seemed like the nicest flipping people, like literally it reminds me of some people would have been like 50 years ago. Like Newfoundland is like 50 years behind. And in just some ways, in other ways it's not. But just, I really think it needs a tunnel to the mainland. And I know that probably won't get done. But to me, Canada should work on it. You have so much.
Why not a bridge? We have like
Yeah, bridges are terrible. Bridges get ice on them. Bridges get run into by ships. Bridges have to deal with the issue of erosion much more than tunnels. Even though tunnels are more expensive, they're safer.
Of what is right? We all know this. Why we teach this to our kids. Just because
I'm a bigger fan of tunnels. So anyway, I'm gonna propose that we build a tunnel to Newfoundland and Labrador. And I think Labrador, in its own way, is like the unsung hero of the island because nobody talks about Labrador. Baller. All right. So what else about Gander? I thought it was interesting.
I think the scene where they had to buy undies from Walmart, but they never got to the specifics of how many undies they really bought, which like there's like 9,000 people at Walmart have enough undies.
Right. I mean, the people were there, like, I thought it was interesting when people were on the plane for like 25 hours and all got really drunk, but didn't know what was going on. They had to like fake out the people for not using the phones and put like a fake note on it. Like, to me, that would never work today. Like, it just showed me that things are different today. Like 50 people would have tried that phone. Even if it says it's broken, in today's day and age, they're going to try that phone. I mean, they'll have cell phones.
I thought they want like some of them were paying those.
Oh, that's different. No. They had the pay phones, but they didn't want 6,000 people using the pay phones all at once, and they would have. So they just put a sign on it if you were paying attention, and the sign said out of order, so that you didn't have people there all night using the phone. And I don't know, the Gander Academy seemed like those people were really nice.
Why can't they use the phone?
Yeah, but they didn't. They felt like they had 6,000 people who needed to just use like a handful of pay phones, and it would have been just everybody would have been at the phones, and they would have been like, come on, get off the phone, basically. So they wanted them at the Gander Academy, so they just put a sign on the phone saying it was out of order.
Okay, so I mean, still, they could have been giving people like a real time.
I agree, but 6,000 people wanted 6,000 people apparently was just too. I mean, that's a lot. If they only have 6 phones, that's 1,000 people who are making cell phone calls, and you can imagine, or like payphone calls. I don't know. I mean, I wasn't there. I would have said the same thing. Just let them use the phone and figure it out. But instead, they're like, we just put a sign on the phone that said out of order because there were just 6,000 people who wanted to make calls, and we needed them at the Gander Academy. I thought it was interesting they had the cots. I thought it was interesting as well, especially in 2001, like homosexuality wasn't seen as it wasn't as normalized as it is today. And they were like, what are we gonna do having like 2 gay guys on cots? And I was like, you know what, that's the least of our worries at this point. And I was sad that the gay guys. That's what they said. That's what the guy said. Were you not watching this documentary? I watched 2 documentaries on Gander, Newfoundland, Canada. Did you even watch one? Yeah, and I gotta listen to you swallow. You guys hear this MF for swallowing on the stream? No, you're sorry. I thought it was really a nice documentary. I've got to say, I paid more attention to this documentary than any of the other ones, and I think it's because, and I love watching when you stream. So whenever you come in here, I want you to stream them. But I can't always hear them that well. I don't know why. So I watched it on a different device, and it was louder, and so I could really pay attention to it. But I did have to watch it in like 1.75 speed, which I really liked. It made it like more enjoyable. I got the whole musical and everything. That was cool. And they went to like La Jolla, and they went to Washington D.C., and then they went eventually made it to Gander, and that was cool. And then they had a reunion where they had people drinking out of like what looked like a big penis. I don't really know, but I'm sure that just they were. I wanted the gay guys to stay together. But I thought it was really nice. That one lady was 60 years old in 2001, and in this documentary did not look much older than that. Like I was thinking, like that was 16 years later. She would have been like 76, and she looked really good. And I thought that.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
I thought that I was surprised how old they said she was in that. And I thought it was sweet. Like she made, like the guy was gonna kiss her on the forehead, and she just kissed him. Like how he wanted to take a picture, and she's like, "Okay, we'll take a picture of the landscape." And he's like, "No, I want to take a picture with you in it." Which today I could see people be like, "Oh, that's so creepy." But like then it was like. You know, it was a beautiful thing, and I could see people who are mature being like, "That's like creepy." That's what pictures are for, to take pictures of people about them. And I thought it was just a really cool moment, and you were like a baby at 9/11, but there was something in the air for 9/12. The day after, where Americans were really pissed, but it was the best day. Everyone was so nice. It was unbelievable how nice it was the next day. It was like there was a switch that was turned on everywhere in America. That we were going to be nice to each other. People were holding doors for each other, letting people into traffic. Everybody was just so nice. And there's actually a foundation that was started called the 9/12 Foundation that wanted to recapture that kind of idea that we had. It was unlike anything I've ever experienced in terms of how nice people were. Everyone was so nice. It was literally like in a movie where they have those the like electrical thing where you like hit the electrical grid like lever. It was like somebody put this lever on, and it was like for 24 hours everybody's like really nice. And it wasn't just for 24 hours. It was for about a week. Everybody had a flag on their car. Flag pins were everywhere. This is the start of when politicians started wearing flag pins. Before that, flag pins were not a thing.
It's like ironic almost that it can actually terrorism people come together.
It's true. It's like what that lady said. If you were paying attention, no, I'm kidding. She was like, it's sad to say, but like such a terrible act brought about so much love, and I thought that was really sweet. That and I thought it was accurate. I think that the town, though, aside from that day, has a really interesting story that hasn't really been fleshed out. It was once the crossroads of, like, Canada, or the air, or whatever you want to consider it, and then all of that industry died. But I find it interesting that, like, you didn't have people who were flying on private planes. There were no private planes. So you would have, like, really big celebrities in the town. And the people of Gander really liked that. They would be like, it was a cool thing about living there that you could meet anybody at the airport. And that's another thing, too. I don't think you ever had the opportunity to travel before 9/11. You've seen it in movies and stuff. PSA and all of that was totally different. You could walk up to the boarding gate and wait for someone or the arrival gate, and like in the movies where they meet right there, right when they get off the plane. All of that was very accurate. And everything they say changed after 9/11, and it really did. They changed. It changed everything. But in a lot of ways, some people found love. So that was cool. I really wanted the gander. I thought they were going to do this when they were talking about the animals. I thought they were going to go to the local gander animal shelter and have the animals come there and be like, what do you call it, animals? Like, what do you call those animals? Yeah, exactly. I thought they were going to have them do that. No, I thought the shelter of gander that would have animals, they would take those animals. Since they had all these extra people, and I'm sure they could have all adopted all of their animals, but it didn't seem like they did.
During their time of support,
well, yeah. I don't know about cats so much, but cats kind of can run away and stuff. But the dogs, generally, I think would have been huge. And it was interesting. And
I found it wild that they left animals on the plane for 36 hours. And they're just dropping in their trade. It was pretty rough. It was pretty rough for the people too. Being stranded like off the plane for 24 hours. Annoying. For the dogs, it must have sucked more because they didn't have water for like 36 hours.
Exactly. Which
long time. Maybe someone longer than that. They just did not. It was like not a priority. I'd be
you're looking
and like another. Some of the cats had like medication. Maybe only had enough medication for a day or something.
You're looking at it. You're looking at it with 2026 eyes. In 2021, animals did not have the same priority that they do. Nobody called their in 2021. Nobody called their animal my fur baby. That wasn't a term that was used. It was just like a thing. You had to take care of the people. I didn't say that. I did not say that. They were fine. Obviously, but there wasn't this idea that this is like my child. That didn't come about for another 10 years.
People cared about dogs a lot.
I agree, but they.
They would have been this knowledge that like leaving the lane for 36 hours without water.
I agree. And they left the people on board for 25 hours, so the animals were only on board seemingly for another 11 hours.
Now we have a problem.
I don't know. Maybe a smaller animal can't go as
that's it. The problem we have over here is
it could have been dangerous. There's probably not AC. It's September though, so the weather probably wasn't too hot. It could have been.
Yeah, they don't talk about any animals.
Yeah, true.
I mean, perhaps they did, and they just didn't cover that. I don't know. I thought
they should let people like touch the rare monkeys.
Yeah.
Get their picture taken from monkeys and have that as like a symbol.
I don't think that's a strange thing. I agree. When else are you going to be able to be with a monkey like that? And yeah, very interesting. But I think that town has a really interesting story that hasn't been fleshed out, or if it has, I mean, the documentary is basically covered, but it's like this really small town, 11,000 people,
So again,
that in some way had a huge effect on people, and it seems like they do reunions. Maybe not like every year, every 10 years or whatever, but occasionally. And I'm sure that there are people who are like, whenever anybody's like, I'm from Newfoundland, they're like, oh, do you know about Gander? And they're like, yeah, actually, I'm from Gander. Oh, well, my grandfather was on this flight on 9/11 and had to stay there. You guys were so nice. Like, I'm sure they get that. They'll get that for 100 years.
Another place. He goes down. Like, holy Hilom of the
Yeah, I mean they built like a sense of community with those people that survived for that. I mean, it wasn't. Well, I mean, it wasn't. They could have been. They didn't. The documentary didn't talk about how other cities were coping with it too. My dad during 9/11 was stranded in Minnesota, in like some very small town in Minnesota, and there's no. You can rent a car. Cars were all rented. You couldn't, like, all the hotels were booked, and then so you had to met people in the airport. They decided to split. One of them had a hotel or something, and then after day 5 or something, they opened up the airport for 2 hours before they closed it down again. And then my dad somehow had talked to some guy who was like an executive or something, and he was like, "Is anyone coming to Toronto? Or anyone want to come to Toronto?" Like their little group, and then they flew out of Minnesota on like day 3 or day 5 in like a private airplane, and they like made it out in like that tour window, and then it closed down for like another no planes were going to for like a while after.
It's a very strange time. You want to watch this podcast?
Once again.
I'm going to sleep right now.
Man, go fuck yourself. Go fuck yourself. I knew I was going to get this bullshit from you. You'll watch Zoot's fucking podcast, which is like an hour long, talking about comedy, I guess, but mine, which talks about mind uploading and CRISPR.
Stream it right now.
So I say, I love for myself.
Alright, stream it. Stream it right now.
Father's defaults. Ruben can't hold Rachel in a relationship.
Are you going to stream it?
If I send the link, will you stream it?
I'll watch it. I can't stream it on my phone.
Okay, we'll watch it.
Rashi.
Okay, and then before you go, then one night after Mom leaves, we're gonna watch the highest watched Joe Rogan ever about Bob Lazar. Then we're gonna watch his most recent one, which happened like yesterday, and then we're gonna watch this other thing, this aviation history. Okay, so you're gonna have like a Bob Lazar night. I hope you're aware of that.
Sounds good, yeah. Like
You don't even know who he is.
Now again, he's not accusing
I know all about him. I know
All right,
about him.
then where did he go to university? I'll wait.
Okay, fine. Now watch this.
Somewhere in California, right?
It's disputed. Perhaps Caltech, which is a Pasadena, and MIT, but it's disputed. It's a weird thing. They basically erased his university records. The government did. So he says he went there, but there are no records. Sure. Okay, fine. We'll give you that.
And he got a degree in physics.
He got a job. Yeah, at Los Alamos Laboratory. So they don't just hire anybody. Like everybody who's there has a degree. But if you look up his records at MIT,
aerospace engineering.
But if you look up his records, they have no record. So it's like somebody from the black world like literally erased him. The only reason why he had any record of himself in Los Alamos, he was like, I worked in Los Alamos. They're like, we have no record of him. He had an old, or someone had an old phone book that had his name on it. And then and when he went there, he knew the place like the back of his hand. He's like, that's where the bathroom is. That's where this is. But they had no record of him. They like erased his record everywhere. But he was in the phone book, and the fact that he was in the Los Alamos phone book for the laboratory showed that he worked there. So.
I understand.
Does the Joe Rogan podcast like that he's in? Does he talk about his movie?
Yeah, he doesn't do. That's the thing that's really interesting about him. He doesn't do press. Rarely. He doesn't like to be on camera. He would do one interview every 5 years, basically. And this is his one interview. He might do maybe one other interview, but he does not like it. He doesn't like the spotlight. And I'm telling you, Riser, and they talk about this on the most recent Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan's so excited that he's there. They get drunk. And that's the thing. Joe Rogan always gets him drunk to try to get more and more out of him. But the thing is, like, that makes it hard for him to concentrate because he's fucking whipped. But they have a good time. And I'm telling you that Bob Lazar's story has remained consistent for 35 years. 35 years. More than that. And I mean, it doesn't. Yeah, so that's what's interesting about this that makes me watch this documentary they made. He worked with team for like 4 years, but just more towards the end of the 4 years that used. They say that of this documentary, 10% of the images are like AI, and 90% were made with blending. And it's the first time that you actually can like be in the documentary in 3D and see what life was like in the ship. And like, there's never been any of that. It's only ever been Bob Lazar trying to describe what the craft was like. And he'd be like, it's a pewter, it's like it was injection molded, or now we know it to be 3D printed. But when he first started talking about this, that the term 3D printing wasn't a thing. And the big thing about Bob Lazar is he knew about a type of element 115, also known as the scobium, also known as pentaene, that hadn't been discovered yet. Which is like a big deal. Like, he would talk about it. That's how these ships, that's how these crafts work. And it's like, you're talking about an element that doesn't exist. And it would only come about like 15 years later and discovered in Russia. So anyway, yeah, it's a fascinating story. It is such a fascinating story. I wasn't on a podcast, but I was on a Twitter space with someone. They had like 2 hour Twitter space. And they're like, does anyone have any like stories they'd like to talk about like, UFOs or aliens or anything? And I was like, and nobody was coming up to talk. And I was like, okay, well, I'll talk about this. Do you guys know about the Bob Lazar story? Oh yeah, we love that story. Tell it. And I just go through it, and I talked for like 30 minutes just about this story. I'm absolutely fascinated by it. I will always be fascinated by it. It is so cool to me that I just can't stop talking about it. It's like, as Joe Rogan said, there's a reason why my number one podcast of all time is about this subject, because everybody finds it interesting. If you have any interest in this subject, you're going to find the idea of the government reverse engineering alien craft to be very interesting, and it absolutely is. So, anyway. Oh yeah, it was disclosed in 2012. But this is a different part of Area 51. This is an area called S4, which is about 15 miles south, and it's like the super secret place. Area 51 is very secret, but S4 is super secret.
So let's focus on the field
Yeah, no, we'll watch it tomorrow.
No, your mom's in town. I don't want to watch it.
No,
She didn't even say bye.
So let's say off in the way when you would sell a field.
All right, well, tell her bye and tell her I enjoyed the conversations that we had.
Yeah, unfortunately, she was retiring, so she couldn't really, she loved the documentary, and I'm sure she's happy to know that you love the answer.
Both of them. Explain I love both of them. Yeah, well, explain that I know all about how Fidel Castro was there and the Queen Elizabeth II was there. Tell her all about this. Tell her how I knew that it was the crossroads of the world at one point. Just brief her, but
I knew that fact. I literally, I knew that fact when I was 6 years old because they knew someone stop on my
yeah,
head.
you didn't know that. Nobody knows that. All right. But would you please, and all,
We're Canadian.
okay, cool. But real people who are worldly don't always know that. Okay, can you please tell her that I very much enjoyed the conversations that we had, and she's a very intelligent individual. She has a wonderful son, and I look forward to speaking with her and you guys together some other time. Thank you, and say hello to Christopher for me, please.
So to speak,
Absolutely, I'll pass that along. Thank you for your kind
Absolutely, my
words.
friend.
Enjoy the rest of your night.
Dog, I slept till 3 o'clock today. I'm so hungry. Peace. You too.
So Rabbi says, now what's going to happen after this is over? So now Reuben is going to want to come back and say to Shimon, by the way, field A is mine. It was stolen from by Levi, who subsequently sold it to you. The Mishnah says no. Asa Simon La'achar Ibed Esif Yisrael. At the end of the day, even Admon agrees, which is interesting. Even Admon agrees in this case, that once Reuben signed on this type of star, which used the contested field as a border for the field being sold, everyone agrees that Reuben has relinquished any further rights to claim what the field is his. Okay, interesting. Let's go. I'm Rabbi. Okay, let's go back to that first. Great. Let's go back to the first case. Let's say so. No, the truth is, I realize that this we actually have to stay on target because the truth is, the Shodesh is Tuesday, Wednesday, right? So the truth is, Tuesday and Wednesday is around a little bit, and Monday, a little bit long. So we got to stay, and we only have 45 minutes on Tuesday and Wednesday. So we're going to be fine. So let's say, so here we go. Let's say, so I'm not by advices. We'll say, now we're focusing on this more. So once again, let's just get back to case number one. Right? Shimon purchases a field from Levi. There's a document. Right? And the document it says that Levi sold the field. Shimon, one of the witnesses is Reuben. Reuben then comes after the sale is complete, and Reuben comes to Shimon and says, Shimon, the field is mine, Levi stole it from me. What? I got the document. So again, Chachamim say, sorry, Reuben, you no longer have any claims because Halakha Ma'isa, you signed on the document. Sorry, you're a witness. We're done. Admon says no. Reuben has a claim. Yes, I signed the document in order to get it out of Levi's hands. Your hands, Shimon, because I thought I had a better chance if you were getting back my land. Fine. So now Abai says, Lo Shano Ela 8. That's only true. Right? All of this is only true. If Halakha Ma'isa, Reuben signed or is the Machlokas, only if Reuben signed as a witness. About Dayan Lo Ibn This is fascinating. So let's say if this is really incredible. So if Halakha Ma'isa, Reuben served as a Dayan, as a judge, everyone agrees that he could still make the claim of theft, even though he wasn't the judge over the document. What is that? Why do you need a judge in this case? Look at watching about Dayan. Shuri the Shtar, the Three Days in the Kaimo, the Mishpat Kiyim Shtars, Sha'idim Baim in the Sabradam, Badayan Facing Shtara Dinan Nafta the Kadmana, Basidi Sadia Hasina Zara Bashir. So say, watch this. Let's say again they come to base certified document. Kiyim Shtars, we've spoken about certification of document. Once and over again. What is Kiyim Shtars? The danger of documents. On one hand, in halacha, document, right? When you have a signed shtar, so that's incredible. The problem is that somebody go ahead and forge. Right? Did you forge a shtar? You forge a shtar? Sure. So there's a concept of shtar certification. What's the concept of kiyum shtaros? You bring your shtar to Beis Din, right? The Beis Din takes a look at it. The Beis Din brings in testimonies, or brings in the witnesses, certify that is their that is their signature. You write a little pen click, right? You write a little either on the document itself or an attached document, and done. The shtar is certified. So this is incredible. So the Abai suggests like this: the machlokes Admon and the Chachamim in the first case of the shtar is only the Ruvain sign as a witness on the transaction. But he was expired on the days that certified the document that does not erode his ability to later on claim that the field was stolen from him. Why, Rabbi Rothschild? This is actually fascinating. We tell you that before, Ein ha'izim chosmi al hashtar ela in kim paroi. Aval, on the days, Aval hadayonim chosmi al ha'fi shalom paroi. They say absolutely incredible. When you witness a transaction, like when you sign as an aid, they say, what are you signing on? What are you signing on? You're signing on the validity of the transaction. Like that's what you're signing on. That I witness this transaction. This transaction is binding, valid, and legal. So you're a dayan for kiyum shtaros. They're going to say, what are you certifying? What are you certifying? Signatures. You are not certifying the transaction. In fact, the dayan, sometimes like kiyum shtaros, the dayanim aren't even reading what's been done. Like, because I'm not certifying the transaction. I have no idea about the transactions. Kiyum shtaros is there just simply to certify the signatures on the document itself. But it has nothing to do with it. It's so fascinating. So fascinating. So you could have a situation of kiyum shtaros, which makes sense to us because otherwise, kiyum shtaros requires a whole certification of the transaction. And what's the point of the shtar? And what does the shtar do? The shtar, right? The edus on the shtar locks in the transaction. Kiyum shtaros certifies the signature. So this is incredible. So we'll say in a case where Reuben wasn't dying for kiyum shtaros. So now let's play this out, right? So Levi sells a field to Shimon, and the rabbis, they drop a document, and now they want to bring the documents to Beis Din for certification. Reuben is one of the dayanim on the Beis Din to certify. Right, Reuben's Beis Din certified the document, and then after it's certified, Reuben says to Shimon, by the way, the field is stolen from him. Everyone agrees in that case. Reuben has a valid claim. That's a valid claim. Reuben has a valid claim. Obviously, saying something was stolen from you is not a claim. Right? I mean, it's a claim. What it means is Reuben now has the right to what? Pursue that claim. Right? So again, why? And everyone agrees in that case. Everyone agrees in that case. Why? Because Reuben's acting as a valid kiyum shtaros has not to do with the transaction. All Reuben was doing was just saying, oh yeah, the signatures we can say we can speak, you guys recognize the signatures, fantastic. So sign it up, right, and then we're done. Certified, we're done. So everyone agrees in that case because nobody erodes his claims to go ahead and pursue the stolen claim, claims allowed to stolen claim. Now Sha'in came, when he's a witness to the actual transaction, sale from Levi to Shimon. In that case, again, part of signing on a shtar is what? You are claiming the transaction itself is valid. When you say claim the transaction is valid, you can't go ahead and now saying that same parcel is stolen from you. Admon says, yes, I can. The transaction was valid. In other words, yes, Levi sold to Shimon. At the end of the day, it's my land. Good. So says the Gemara. I saw a similar happen. Especially the next case the Mishnah was. So I remember again. Right? So same case, but let's say it's not the same case. In this case, Shimon the purchaser, or Shimon the purchase contents the property with fellow parcel A. Shimon is selling parcel B and uses parcel A to identify the borders of parcel B. Reuben himself signs on that shtar as well, not as well, but Reuben signs on that shtar. The Mishnah says everyone agrees that after he signs on that shtar, he no longer has the right to pursue any claims that the land is stolen. The parcel A is stolen. Not by it. Those shtar that's only true for the Fiyagot. Rashi says, "Lo sha'ara'achad, dafka nafek masnisin simin la'achad, aval asa ha'muchsak ba simin la'atzmo sha'ruben za'ora la'asvasa." Listen to this. That's only true when what? When Shimon is selling the parcel to someone else. What happens if Shimon is selling the parcel to Reuben himself? Shimon is selling parcel B to Reuben. And I have to be in that sale, Shimon uses parcel A, which is the custom property, as a border identification. But ultimately, in that case, even though Reuben did not go ahead and seize out and is referring to reclaim parcel A. Why? The Amar, he believed that because he said, I will not agree to this, but have a mountain in the trees. But ultimately, again, Shimon was not sell the property. In other words, the thing over here is that if Shimon knows that Reuben is going to be claiming parcel A, he's going to be reticent to what? Sell a parcel B. Shimon wants, right? Reuben wants to buy parcel B. So by logic, I can claim now, I'm not going to get parcel B. Certainly, again, leaving aside parcel A. So the Gemara says, "Not just what kind of so what should Reuben have done? If I let him name my Noga, so maybe what Reuben could have done is thus, that Jerry purchases parcel B from Shimon." Put aside the witness. Say witness. That's what he does. I'm purchasing parcel B from Shimon. In the transaction, Shimon is saying that parcel B, right, borders on Shimon's other parcel A. Guys, I just want to tell you, Reuben is crazy. Like a sidebar. I tell you guys, Manuel says he's going from the saying anything he's not allowed to from this transaction. Maybe that's what we should say. Make them a God, not Paul. Like, let him go. And I says, yeah, that'll work really well. Favra is like, the Favra is like, this is good, guys. Your friend has a friend, and the friend gets your friend. Which I guess, you know what they were saying? Don't rely on anyone's confidentiality. So the nice again, if Reuben says something so to people in confidence, so the witnesses, they're going to say something, and what's going to happen? It's going to cause the whole transaction, partially to fall together. Good, the Moses is followed. So how the cover is though? Who does similar right? So let's say, so let's do this. In this case, so the case over here is, so let's go back. So let's like, so this is just a unique case over here. So remember, let's go back. The Mishnah said that in a case where Reuben is now signed on a shtar, right, is a witness to a document where Shimon is selling parcel B to another party, and in parcel B, he's using parcel A to protect the parcel as one of the borders. And Reuben signed on that document. Reuben gives up his right to further to any more claim parcel A. That's only true. That now, if I give a qualification, that's true. So if Shimon was selling it to another party, but if Shimon was selling it to Reuben himself, so Reuben doesn't object to the use of parcel A as a border. That's because Reuben doesn't want to call into jeopardy the whole transaction. Fine. Listen, I go back to the original case. Who does us in that? So let's go back to the Mishnah's original case. Right, so the Mishnah's original case. So I'm not going to say now. So Reuben is on the shtar where Shimon is selling parcel B using parcel A as a coordinate. So what happens? Here are the shuffle. So after the transaction happens, now what happens? So Ruben claims, by the way, parcel A is mine. Parcel A is mine. So what happens? Shuffle. Then he died. Ruben died. Right, so Ruben died. Right? Right? Ruben died after raising the objections to the ownership of parcel A. Okay. What happens? The open upper tracks. Let's say so now again. So after Ruben passed away, right? Either Ruben made provisions for this beforehand, or the dates are appointed an apotropos. Now there's an executor of Ruben's estate. Okay. So Asaf Abaye coming to Abaye. The apotropos came before Abaye. Amalei saw similar. So this is now what happens. The apotropos is coming. Why is